Magical creatures are a big part of the Harry Potter world, whether you're looking at Hedwig, Buckbeak or the Centaurs, right the way through to the House Elves, the Goblins and the Trolls. They all play a big part in the series. And obviously we know people like Newt and Hermione and Hagrid absolutely love the magical creatures. So what rights do they have? Let's have a look into that. So as I've mentioned in another video, there is a department for the regulation and control of magical creatures. And what they do is they're basically responsible for managing the treatment, rights and regulations of various magical creatures in the British Wizarding community. So we have different divisions, 3 of them: the Beast Division, the Being Division and the Spirit Division. So the Beast Division obviously looks at things which are typically beasts, so dragons, thestrals, hippogriffs. That will fall under that category. You've then got the Being Division. So these are more humanoid creatures like house elves, goblins and merpeople. And then you have the Spirit Division, which are the entities, the ghosts, the poltergeists, that type of thing as well. Now the rights of magical creatures are either poorly enforced or just completely neglected altogether. And many magical beings can't afford or don't have the protection of humans by their side. For instance, house elves are just denied a lot of rights because they're actually seen as property by witches and wizards. And therefore there's a lot of discrimination and oppression against house elves, but of course against other magical creatures. So let's break it down into specific creatures, and we're going to look at the status, the rights as well of these creatures. And we're going to start with house elves. So they're perhaps the most prominent example of creatures being denied basic rights. They're bound to serve wizarding families, often for generations, and they're typically mistreated or exploited. They have virtually no rights. They're seen as more servants, they can't be paid, and their magical abilities are often taken for granted. Now, their servitude is enforced by their deep-rooted magical enslavement, which makes it nearly impossible for them to leave their families unless granted freedom by their masters. So we do have 2 examples, obviously. We have Dobby and Kreacher. Now they are typically, if you're familiar with the films, you'll know them, but if you're familiar with the books more, we've also got Winky as well. And I think Dobby and Kreacher are two ends of the same scale. So you've got Dobby, who is very much, he knows what his masters are doing is wrong. He wants to warn Harry Potter. He wants to make him kind of aware. So Dobby is loyal to his family to a degree, in the sense that he is trying to say something to Harry, but he's punishing himself for doing it. And then you've got Kreacher, the other end, who lived in the Black household, and no one could say anything against Bellatrix. He was loyal to a fault, absolutely ride or die for that family. So you have those 2 ends of that scale. We obviously then have, if you're again familiar with the books, you have the Spew campaign that Hermione got involved in as well, to try and advocate for the rights of house elves, but it's met with quite a bit of resistance and she didn't have much success with it, unfortunately, at all. So moving over to goblins. So these are highly skilled in metalwork and they're responsible for managing the Wizarding World's bank, which is Gringotts, but they're often depicted as being greedy and distrustful of wizards. They have historically been denied full rights, including the right to own property, apart from like coin, so they can have gold and silver in the form of coin, but that's it. They have a long-standing mistrust of wizards and are often seen as untrustworthy, despite how intelligent they actually are and the fact of their magical abilities. So for instance, one thing to note about goblins is that they believe that they own the sword of Gryffindor, and they're depicted as wanting to have more rights over their work and possessions like the sword. They believe that they should have ownership of any objects that they created, which causes tension with wizards who actually think that those items are their property. You can see how these things how this could get annoying. Moving over to werewolves. The werewolves are humans who transfer into wolves during the full moon. So we have good examples here of Remus Lupin and Fenrir Greyback, and they represent the 2 sides of werewolf society. So you have Lupin, who's very much trying to control it. He's a good person. He's he's not trying to hurt anyone, he's just trying to keep a normal life. He has that potion. He tries to maintain as much of a normal life as he can. And then you've got Greyback, who very much leans into it. I think he's the one that actually turned Lupin into a werewolf. And yeah, again, it's like Kreacher and Dobby again. You've got two sides of the same scale, where Greyback is very much into being a werewolf, very much like, yes, this is for me. I'm going to turn this into my superpower, kind of like his villain story. And then you've got Lupin, who's very much trying to live a normal life with it. So werewolves face severe discrimination, however, in the wizarding world. They're often shunned, and those who are infected are ostracised, really. The full moon transformation makes them dangerous, and whilst they're not automatically considered evil, the prejudice that they face results in very limited rights and opportunities. Now, there is a potion, the Wolfsbane potion, which is what Lupin actually takes, and this helps him to manage his condition, allowing him to retain his human mind during transformation. So, although he has the body of a werewolf, mentally, it'll still be him. He's in control of his faculties. He knows what he is and isn't doing at that point. But the potion is difficult to procure, and it comes with its own set of challenges. Now, we know that Snape was the one, I believe, who was helping Lupin with the Wolfsbane potion throughout the Prison of Azkaban. But the Ministry of Magic has actually passed laws to restrict the rights of werewolves, such as banning them from holding certain jobs or from marrying certain people. Moving over to hippogriffs. So everyone loves a hippogriff. So hippogriffs such as Buckbeak are magical creatures that are part eagle and part horse. They're generally viewed as noble and proud, but they can be dangerous if they're provoked. While they're not slaves or second-class citizens like house elves, they are often mistreated or misunderstood. So, for instance, in Prisoner of Azkaban, Buckbeak is put on trial after attacking... I knew that because it was provoked, let's be honest. After attacking Malfoy when Malfoy disrespects Buckbeak, leading to a broader debate about the treatment of magical creatures. So obviously Draco had been warned what to do and what not to do, so this was his fault, but it really highlighted the mistreatment of magical creatures in the sense that animal trials, they will favour the human. They are held accountable for their actions without actually it being considered the animal's nature or their rights at all. And the last one we're just going to look at is Thestrals. So these are skeletal winged horses that can only be seen by those who have witnessed death. They are often regarded with fear and superstition by most witches and wizards. And they're treated as mere tools for transportation and are frequently used in Hogwarts to carry the carriages or to take the carriages that carry the students to and from the school. Despite their helpfulness, they're actually seen as foreboding and unlucky, and their rights are often ignored because of how they look. So let's look at how people advocate for the creature rights. Now, as I've mentioned already, we've got SPEW, which stands for the Society for the Promotion of Elvish Welfare. Now, this is I don't want to say a big part of the book, but it is kind of like one of those medium-sized storylines in the Goblet of Fire, where Hermione kind of I think she sees what's happened with the elves and things like that, and she decides that they need to have more rights, so their welfare needs to be improved. And her efforts are quite largely ignored by people, and her attempts to promote house elf freedom are seen as naive, overzealous, just unwanted entirely. But her passion for this does spark a wider conversation about the mistreatment of magical beings. We then got Hagrid, and we know that Hagrid absolutely adores creatures, especially those that are considered as dangerous or misunderstood. Two examples, Buckbeak and Aragog. Hagrid will often go out of his way to try and teach people about respecting creatures, how important it is, and also about their habitats. So he really is trying to do a good thing here and make people aware of, you know, how to approach these animals and if you should at all. Now, I do know after what happened in the Prison of Azkaban, he kind of goes into himself a little bit, and I think it's the blast ended scroots he ends up doing with the students, which Harry and Ron find very boring. But otherwise, Hagrid has a massive love for these animals, as we know with Norbert as well, the dragon. And finally, probably the most important person for the magical rights, Newt Scamander. His entire first movie really was about capturing all these amazing, fantastical beasts and trying to put them back, trying to rescue them and then put them back in their natural habitat. But also, he wants to teach people how to look after them. He's the precursor to Hagrid, you can definitely see Hagrid was probably influenced by Newt Scamander. Newt is dedicated to studying the conservation of magical creatures. He believes in the rights and the welfare of them, and he has an ongoing mission to protect them from being exploited as well. Let's look at magical creatures in the Muggle world. So, the existence of magical creatures in the Muggle world is kept a closely guarded secret. And creatures like dragons and mer people are often hidden from Muggle population, and you can understand why. It would either cause widespread panic, or people would end up doing really stupid things like capturing them and putting them in a zoo, something like that. Newt believes in the rights and welfare of magical creatures, and he has an ongoing mission to protect them from exploitation. So under the International Statute of Wisdom Secrecy, magical creatures and the rights are subject to strict regulations. For example, the use of dragons and other dangerous creatures is tightly controlled to prevent them from being exposed to Muggles, for obvious reasons, like I said. Let me know what you think, if you think there's anything else on this list that should be added. So I did mention trolls, ogres, that sort of thing, haven't talked about them here, but if there's any other creatures you can think of that would be interesting to understand their rights, do let me know. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, you take care.